Eagle 6 in the track.
Roger.
Viper 1 bombs away. One's going to climb high above 20. You're south.
Eagle 6 radar contact. Eagle 6 is visual.
And it goes left.
Hello there, I'm Prickly Hedgehog. Welcome back to the DCS SITREP, where we talk about the world's premier combat flight simulator for the home PC right now. It is DCS World. It's brought to you by Eagle Dynamics and its many third-party affiliates. And this is an exciting newsletter this week from ED because they have given us a pretty decent update at the work that they're doing on the MiG-29A Fulcrum. Remember, this was announced at the beginning of the year, and we haven't really seen a whole lot of information on the aircraft, certainly no screenshots to the degree that we saw this week. I hope you're enjoying the shots thus far. I'm very, very excited about this aircraft because it fills an important niche in the REDFOR stable of aircraft, where a early Gen 4 aircraft to compete with the likes of, say, the F-16 and the F-18 has been missing from the ED lineup for quite a while. So this is a very, very important aircraft. And it also, by the looks of the newsletter this week, features some new technology. And also, by way of reminder, this is not a swept up version of the non-full fidelity modules already existing. This is going to be a complete built up module. This is going to be a much more comprehensive and detailed module. So don't expect just a clicky cockpit version of the pre-existing module. So let's talk a little bit about why that is. And remember too, this aircraft is going to be available Q2 2025. So a little bit later than I had hoped in terms of a prediction, which was really more of a guess/wish. I had hoped that it was going to be available Christmas 2024. Even as an early access, but I wasn't far off. I thought it might come in the first part of 2025. Q2, not bad. So let's talk about the newsletter then. Right now, the focus, the team say, is on the design of the external model, the cockpit, the avionics, and the general aircraft systems. This is the first aircraft that ED have based on photogrammetry. They tell us the cockpit reference aircraft, so this is just the cockpit, is located in the Aircraft Museum in Košice, which is in Slovakia. And they wanted to thank the generous assistance of the museum staff there, allowing them presumably to get into the cockpit and do all of the video and photography and photogrammetry work that they needed to do. So the textures and geometry of the new cockpit have been created from scratch using new technologies that include high polygon models for baking and normal maps. This technique has provided many quality improvements while also presenting plenty of challenges. They don't go into what those challenges are, but we're looking at a new cockpit. Again, this is not just a revamped version or clicky cockpit version of a pre-existing aircraft. Now, they've generated a huge number of photos and videos of the aircraft, no surprise there, and completely reworked the external model. Another important step there. Based on this reference data and factory diagrams, we were able to include an exceptional level of detail for items such as surface materials and treatment, rivets, screws, and panel joints. The new normal map reflects the structure of the aircraft skin to a high degree of accuracy. The texture resolution increased by 400%. Again, this is going to be a much more detailed module than, again, the existing ones we have in game currently are. They went on to say here that a lot of work has been completed on avionics and systems, including the optical laser system, or OLS, which is an important component of the MiG-29 targeting suite. Its main elements are the infrared search and track, or IRS system, and laser rangefinder. Most of the air-to-air targeting modes are progressing well and nearing completion. The gun sight development was not a trivial task, with a complex simulation of both the tracked target mode and the non-tracked or funnel mode. The gun sights have been significantly redesigned for a highly accurate representation of the real unit. A new mode has been added which was designed to engage invisible aerial targets in cloud, haze, or at night with the gun. Interesting. Weapon modes for engaging ground targets and rockets and guns at fixed and moving targets in the presence of wind are in active development. So there's some more calculus and algorithms being created there, which is interesting stuff. They've also scheduled the development of the basic bombing modes in the near term. So I wonder if we'll see what happens with the release here and how much of this stuff will be fully working. probably will see some tweaks and adjustments to the specifics of the parameters with which the calculations are occurred there based on feedback. We'll see how things go. Now, we've totally recreated the fire control radar or FCR architecture and the main modes. After primary work on the OLS and the FCR is complete, they will model the interaction between those two units. Cool. The SPO-15LM radar warning receiver, also known as product L006LM, has been completely rewritten. The new SPO-15 uses the same physics-based approach as the SPO-10, but with greater attention being paid to its second iteration of directivity patterns for transmitting and receiving antennas. The latter being of particularly high importance to Soviet RWR designs due to the independent processing of an output from each azimuth sector antenna. I almost said scan there, but sector antenna. Additionally, the database has been expanded with each radar having a unique signature in terms of signal properties, and with the properties themselves covering additional details. Thanks to these improvements, the new SPO-15 can be modeled to closely emulate the algorithms used in the real system. Emulate, all right. And it simulates many of its real-life quirks and limitations. Cool. Pilots will find themselves having to pay attention to these limitations to utilize its full potential. These include, but are not limited to, non-linear range indications that will properly display the signal power, blinding by high-power radars, and many cases of incorrect threat type determination due to limited resolution, which the signal parameters are measured. The depth and accuracy of the simulations will make our new implementation of SPO-15 and DCS the most realistic and detailed simulation of this system of NEP simulator. So again, a nice little landmark here for Eagle Dynamics, which I think is an important one. A lot of people argue about this kind of stuff, argue about why it's an emulation, why it shouldn't be more accurate, etc., etc. Again, it's based on data. It's based on the limitations of lots of different things, including even some of the working parameters of these radars that we have simulated in game as well. So again, lots of little interesting caveats there, but an exciting piece of equipment for the aircraft. And again, it's going to be interesting to see how it functions in game. Now, moving on here to a mission editor data programming panel, which is being developed for the navigation system. This will allow you to program the flight before the start of the mission and use this program in flight. Access to the panel and modification of the data will be possible during the simulation when the aircraft is on the ground, so not on the fly. They are developing the MiG-29A's INS system and its interaction with the navigation system. Special attention is being paid to the modes of ground INS alignment and its accuracy and drift in flight. This is going to be affected by the alignment mode and the presence or absence of radio correction from the programmed beacon. Interesting. No mention, of course, there of GPS, you'll notice. So an older system, which I imagine is probably subject to a degree of drift and inaccuracy the longer you're flying it, which is not uncommon of INS systems. But of course, as we know, a lot of the modern aircraft, or more modern aircraft, and certainly ones that are simulated in game, are using combinations of GPS and INS, similar to the white paper we saw a couple of weeks ago with the F-16. So a slightly more sophisticated system. So again, an interesting piece of kit and an interesting simulation for the game. Now, work remains on the IFF, or Identify a Friend or Foe system. They'll release the core functionality of that at early access and then continue to work on the more advanced features as the aircraft development continues post-release. Aircraft systems are being added and refined to a deep level of functionality. This includes the new hydraulic and electrical systems, procedures and physics of engine startup and shutdown, expansion and reconfiguration of automatic control systems, and numerous new modes are also being introduced and transients are being improved. So lots of things there. No mention of the damage system. I imagine there should be at least a basic damage system from early access. We'll have to wait and see what that is. And not a whole lot, I guess we can guess, but no specifics on weapons. Presumably the ones we have in game will function. So we'll have to wait and see if there's any tweaking there. I suspect there will be, because if you go to more depth with the weapon systems and the sensors for those weapon systems at least, and the interaction between, say, the FCR and the Earth system you may have to tweak some of the parameters in which these weapons function and work. So I guess we'll see more information on that as time progresses. But overall, very, very interesting newsletter. Very, very interesting screenshots. Some of these look amazing. And again, it's an aircraft that is long overdue in the game, at least certainly its type. And I think it's going to fill a gap there that is going to please REDFOR players. As an aircraft, I think, yeah, it's in the right hands. Of course, it's going to be particularly deadly, potentially, and it's going to provide an interesting counterpart to aircraft like the F-16, which it was designed to, challenge, so to speak. Obviously, the tactics for Soviet-era aircraft, even today, perhaps are a little bit different from the West's, and therefore there are some limitations with the way in which the aircraft is designed. I think sometimes we tend to look at these aircraft as a mechanism in which we can fly it like Blue Force tactics, which are quite different, and so therefore some of the design functionality and the intent behind some of the systems are quite a bit different from our Blue Force aircraft. So again, lots of different considerations. Doesn't necessarily make it a less capable plane, depending on how you fly it. It just therefore there are just some different parameters with which it was intended to be used. And so that can, again, create some interesting shortfalls for players as they get to grips with, the strengths and weaknesses that all aircraft have. So kind of cool, and I'm very interested to see how ED implements these various features and what we get as a final design here, or at least certainly an early access design. I think it's a very, very important aircraft to have in the game. Looks really amazing. And again, I'm very, very impressed with the work that they are describing here that they've done on it. So stay tuned for more information. Let me know what you think of these early shots and comments about the Fulcrum, whether or not you're interested in buying it, whether or not you're interested in looking at seeing it in the game. And of course, we'd like to see more, but alas, alack, getting data on certain types of certainly modern Russian aircraft and even Russian export aircraft is a little bit tricky right now, certainly given the political situation that we're in. So yeah, cool. Overall, I think it's very, very exciting. So again, let me know what you think.
Lead 5-1, we are tracking bleed 1, 2, and 3, negative track on bleed 4, say bleed 4 pod number.
Please have copy all, please have 2 and 3, negative tracking, we'll recycle our pods.
Now lastly here, of course, ED reminded us that we have the winter sale going on right now. Remember, up to 50% on some aircraft and modules and things, so don't miss out on picking up a bargain or two, because it's a good time to gather ye aircraft while ye may, as I always say. And of course, bundling as well helps save a little bit of cash as you pick up maybe a favorite aircraft, map, campaign, and enjoy the break over the Christmas if you can. I'll be working mostly, but I hope you get a break and enjoy, like I said, some of these amazing looking aircraft.
351, stay up to 2
Please, almost passing 30,000 feet, visually conflicted with the Pablos underneath that.
Well, let's talk about some things not covered in this week's newsletter from Eagle Dynamics, but is out there in the sim environment. We'll start with Echo Fox India and the MB339, and also an update to their G91 aircraft. So the team wanted to talk about the fact that they're doing a lot of work on the MB339, starting with the flight director system, which was the most significant addition this year to the aircraft, and the implementation of the flight director system based on a PID control. This addition extends to the training possibilities, which now include instrumental landings. They've also added special options, allowing users to customize their flight experience on the MB339. These options provide greater flexibility in configuring the module to personal preferences. They added some new key bindings as well to give us a little bit more flexibility, a little bit more intuitive control and comprehensive control over the aircraft. They also updated the flight model, which has undergone several updates, further refining the aircraft's performance. In particular, improvements have been made to ground behavior during taxiing and takeoff, making these phases a little bit more realistic, which is really cool. They worked a lot on bug fixes, they said, trying to address various issues reported by the community. Some of the key ones include more accurate gun sight adjustments, resolutions to GPS and TACAN issues, which are now correctly indicated for magnetic heading, and they've also fixed incorrect altimeter values and numerous other minor optimizations that improve stability and overall experience of the aircraft. Future updates they describe here, that the 339 remains in continuous maintenance, and they will continue to release updates and bug fixes to ensure the highest levels of quality and fidelity. Additionally, we are considering introducing new features such as the ability to deploy the AIM-9L and or the Magic 2 air-to-air missiles. Now, although this is a fictional feature for the A version, they decided it could be an interesting addition to expand the module's operational capabilities within the game. So interesting concept there, so stay tuned for that. Now, many of you will be wondering, well, what about their other module, the DCS G91? Now, they said they've been pretty quiet about the development of this module. Rest assured, we've been working on it quite a lot in the past few months. This module remains a key project for them, and development is actively progressing. In particular, they have just completed the total refactoring of the cockpit model, and while the textures are still a work in progress, they're happy to finally share with us some screenshots of the pilot's office. The next major step is to fully integrate the new cockpit with the aircraft code on the aircraft to date, allowing them to get rid of the old model, which they no longer consider up to the high quality standards required by DCS World and achieved by the game. So they believe the G91 development will proceed at a much faster pace and are confident that we will be able to see the release of the first version in 2025. So again, you heard it. We're going to see a first version release of this G91 by 2025. They can't commit to a specific date, of course, but the philosophy remains unchanged across all of our products. It's done when it's done. So thank you for your patience, and they continue to work on these projects. They'll keep us posted, hopefully, for some more information soon. And that's a good reminder, too. It's a good philosophy. It's done when it's done, because sometimes I think we get a little titchy on how long it takes some of these aircraft to be produced. Although, in fairness, it's good that teams like this are doing updates for us, because that helps satiate some of the frustration and some of the mystery behind the development processes. Of course, smaller teams also do take longer generally to work on things. And yeah, they've got a lot on their plate too. This team works closely with Heapler, remember, producing products for Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. They talked a fair bit about, actually on their website, or at least on the Facebook page, about issues they've had with that, with some of the pre-existing modules not importing well or porting well into the new version of that. So they're a busy team, as I said, working closely with Heapler, and we'll see how that symbiosis continues, and we'll see how these existing projects and new projects come forward in the DCS World environment. Now, while we talk about Heapler, they said we've been pretty quiet publicly this summer and fall, but they wanted to remind us too that they've been working hard behind the scenes on polishing the F4E, restructuring some of their code bases, preparing for the future, and also working on future aircraft. Ooh, but no mention of which ones. We know that they're working on the Eurofighter, and we know that they're working on the A6. So I imagine we'll get more information hopefully in 2025, so stay tuned. Now, that said, they said we've also been spending quite a lot of time with the F-14, shipping some new enhancements and features while working also on the early A version. Now, changes to Link 4 and various other quality of life changes have been shipped in the last patches, and the next DCS patch will see a significant improvement in parts of the radar. Now, this primarily focuses on a major change in track while scan and combining and splitting, especially with an airborne Phoenix underway. This should please some people. This should yield far more effective employment of the AIM-54 and radar in high threat density environments, or where a Phoenix would otherwise fail when tracks would drop or diverge. And they included some pictures here too that you hopefully should be looking at. These images apparently show the before and after state of scenarios in which the AUG-9 previously would incorrectly extrapolate tracks when splitting or combining tracks, leading to trashed Phoenixes. So they say here, with the new corrections coming, you should enjoy smacking down those enemy groups much more effectively with the AUG-9 Phoenix combo soon. So stay tuned for more information on that. A very, very capable and exciting team. I enjoy the work that Heapler does. Obviously, the Phantom was a fantastic addition to 2024. Very complex module, not only because of the incredible work that they've done with Jester 2, producing an AI that's a lot more effective, but just in general, the level of detail in the aircraft. And it's an old analog jet, but that poses some challenges because the consolidation and integration of modern avionics isn't there, certainly with regards to systems. It's a lot of switches and dials. So that is cumbersome sometimes, and it can get your head scratching as you have to deploy switches in the correct order, and certainly challenging for me. I think I prefer sometimes the simplicity that the more modern jets offer, but nonetheless, I definitely appreciate the detail that Heapler has put into that particular module. I think it's been a great success, and so I'm looking forward to seeing further improvements and updates to that particular module.
Magic, Takeoff 6-4, you are loud and clear. Takeoff 6-4 is climbing to 20,000 for Crate 47 to join at 19,000. We are climbing to Angels 20 and Crate 47 to climb to 19. Crate 47 copies, okay.
Well, lastly here, I guess, once again, Ron Zambrano produced or showcased a couple of interesting images of the Mirage 2000D. Once again, though, we don't know which franchise this aircraft is going to be plugged into. And I stand by what I said last week. I think if you were a franchise looking to take on board the RASBAM team, you would definitely want to have some sort of ratification between ED and RASBAM to confirm that there isn't any baggage that the RASBAM team brings to your particular franchise. You wouldn't want any loitering litigation or other financial issues, whatever else it is, coming to the team, all right? And I say this because, in fairness, now we've had 8 months of no development on 4 aircraft in DCS world. We're talking the F-15E, which is effectively their flagship, the Mirage 2000, the MiG-19, and lastly the Harrier. They're all good modules. They all have their quirks, but they've essentially sat in limbo. The F-15E, several months ago, remember, had the radar issue, which was caused by Gallinet, who did the radar work on that, fantastic radar work, I might add, for that aircraft. And essentially he figured out that if this issue was not resolved, he was going to sort of partially sabotage his work on that in order to protect his own intellectual and hard work on that portion of the aircraft. And sure as shit, the months went by and the radar stopped working. Nobody was aware that he had prearranged that particular programming jiggery-pokery into it. Fortunately, it was resolved. But again, we've got 4 aircraft, in fact, that have not been worked on largely for the last 8 months. And then you have to question too, well, if all of these refunds and store credits and things like that have been returned, and what's the status of, financially of the RASBAM team? Because if they come back online, which I'm hoping they will, it'll be awesome if they do, and we get back to business and the aircraft are supported. Does RASBAM still have a team of people that can support the implementation of a large number of changes, 8 months worth of work, effectively, on these modules that have been sitting in the game while other things around have been improved? Whether that's weapons adjustments, whether that's, and obviously those not necessarily are going to affect, but certainly any optimizations and things like that, or other fixes that need to be plugged into these modules to keep them up to scratch with the overall evolution and progression of the game. Do they have staff to do that? And then again, it's a little bit of, personally, I find it a little bit of a strange message, wherein you're touting work on a new aircraft, which is going to be plugged into an unknown or mystery franchise. And again, you kind of haven't explained where you're at with the community here who has invested in your products. So again, I find it a little bit of a strange message in some ways. I don't think it's a particularly helpful one. And I get it. There's a need to keep your brand fresh and exciting and touting new things. I mean, it's part of the way we keep interest and keep teams alive, because some of the third-party teams are very quiet, as we saw before with the India Fox Decker. We haven't really said a lot about this aircraft that we're working on because we've been busy with it and we've been busy with other things. But hey, here's an update just to remind you that we're still working on it, which I think is an important way of keeping connection with the community. And some of the other third-party teams are not so good at this for various reasons. I understand that. They're busy. And DCS World, as has been said in the past, and several third-party developers have pointed this out, DCS World is much more complex than Microsoft Flight Simulator for developing products. And so this is why you often don't see persistent and regular updates, because they're just too busy to do that. Again, where does it leave Razbam, and what does this Mirage 2000D mean? What kind of signal are you transmitting here?
Magic, be advised, 111 and 12 will monitor this frequency for any words.
And what's your aim here in keeping touch with the community? Because I think a lot of the comments on X were which franchise is this and what's going on? So yeah, interesting topic. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. I think we'll come here to the end of another DCS SITREP. I want to thank once again everybody for your support this year. Not sure if we'll get another SITREP in before the end of the year. We may do. I've been enjoying flying around in Iraq. So we'll leave you with some images of that. It's been a really great map. I'm enjoying what I've seen thus far, and I'm hoping to see more improvements, as ED has promised, with regards to optimizations and things like that. It's looking pretty good, though. And of course, the fleshing out of that map and the Afghanistan map. Yeah, what an interesting year. Well, again, thank you. I hope you all have a great Christmas break and get to spend time with family and friends. And it's a cruel world still, unfortunately. So take time to appreciate what you have. We'll see you next time on the DCS SITREP.
Magic, Rancho 1 is red. There's one on that. It'll be a 4-4.